Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this exciting panel discussion today, where we are going to be celebrating International Women's Day with a very interesting topic on how we can forge gender parity in hiring and beyond with the rise of women without the fall of men. I can see that quite a few people are still joining the platform, joining the discussion. So, we'll get started in another minute or so. In the meanwhile, please don't hesitate to introduce yourself via the chat. We'd love to know where you're dialing in from, and we'll get started in just another minute or so. Okay, let's get started. Again, hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this exciting panel discussion on the rise of women without the fall of men. Really excited to hear from our very interesting panel of speakers. But before that, maybe I can just perhaps introduce myself. So my name is Tulika Tripathi, and I'm the founder and CEO of Snaphunt, a leading remote hiring platform that helps employers find and hire specialist talent across the globe. Now, why I'm really excited about this particular discussion is because in my panel here today, we have founders and senior executives of leading startups who are all motivated by a very similar thing. And that is really to change the world that we are living in tomorrow with their respective solutions. So I'd love to hear much more about them, and it should be a very interesting discussion to know more about how they think they can change the world in terms of the ideas they have around gender parity. Now, just a few points before we get started. So today we have around 55 minutes for us. So we're going to kick off this discussion with a quick round of speaker introductions, after which we will launch into the main panel discussion. And we will keep at least 10 questions from participants. So do feel free, as you have questions that come into your mind for a specific speaker or for the entire panel, to put in your questions there, and I will take them up with the panel as we go along. And then we'll keep the last 5 minutes to sort of wrap up on the key points that we heard from our speakers today. Finally, again, we love organizing things that, events that we think can benefit all of us. So do connect with us on social media and follow us at Snaphunt Jobs on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, so that we can keep you updated on our next events. Again, without further ado, I would like to welcome all our speakers to perhaps just unmute themselves and then switch on their video, and let's get started. Awesome. So Benjamin, can I ask you, it's Women's Day, but I'm going to go men first, if that's okay, just to sort of keep it a little exciting and on your toes. So Benjamin, do you want to maybe start with introducing yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Ben. I'm the CEO and co-founder of BrioHR, which is an all-in-one HR management platform for SMEs, particularly in the Southeast Asian region. As far as I'm concerned, I'm French, been living in Asia for many years and based out of Kuala Lumpur. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Sagar.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sagar. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Multiplier. I'm based out of Singapore. Multiplier essentially is a global employment platform that helps companies employ talent globally without having to set up your legal entity. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Nellie, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Nellie Wartoft. I'm the founder and CEO of Tigerhall. Tigerhall is a social learning platform. So we help people learn from the best in industry, both outside of your company, but also inside your company. I'm based in Singapore and originally from Sweden.
Amazing. Thanks, Nellie. Shirley?
Hi, everyone. My name is Shirley. I represent Builder.ai. I'm the lead for APAC, handling both partnerships and sales. So Builder.ai is essentially an organization where we help customers build their applications, and we provide the platform to do that as well. And, as an entrepreneur, you have a dream to build an app, and we can do that through AI.
Awesome. And finally, Pauline.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Pauline. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Hybrid. We are a platform that offers IT solutions for every situation. I'm based in Hong Kong and Singapore.
Awesome. Thanks, Pauline. So, Pauline, I'll ask you first. Do you think that the rise of women means the fall of men? Because, we're on Women's Day and nobody really says it out loud, but a lot of people think like, oh, okay, Women's Day, really it's 2023. And do we really need that today? I mean, what are your thoughts around it? Can women grow without men feeling threatened?
Yeah, I think, if we want to, I think it's super important to move away from supporting women as a charity project, right? I think we've all seen enough studies that show that very diverse leadership brings much better results, especially in business, especially financially. So I think there's really no need for men to feel threatened around that. Quite the contrary. So I feel like the more diversity we promote, the better the financial results of any company. And I'm sure all men agree that that's also in their interest.
So Benjamin, obviously you agree, but I would love to understand a little bit more from you. How can we promote women without it being a fall for men? Or do you feel that they can't go hand in hand?
I definitely think they can go hand in hand. I don't think at all that it's a zero-sum game. I don't think that a winner implies that there is a loser when it comes to promoting, gender equality and equal chances in the workplace and so on. So I do think, and I do agree with Pauline, that it's been proven many, many times through studies, but also through my personal observations in my companies I worked in and so on, that having a diverse team, diverse in gender and diverse in many other aspects as well, is a no-brainer, more effective team in the end. So I really do think that we need to move away indeed from the rise of someone, fall of someone else.
Shirley, what about you? I mean, how do you, slightly different, large, very, very large organization as well. Builder.ai is huge now. How do you see the rise of women, but not threatening the fall of men?
Actually, there's nothing for men to get threatened with the rise of women. It's as simple as this for me, right? I come from the technology field. We've seen the sector go through 2 decades, and what I can tell you is this, right? What it means is just giving women the equal opportunity to represent yourself, right? Whether it's for a role within the organization, whether it's just being heard, in a boardroom meeting or just in a meeting in front of many customers and partners, or whether it is just breaking a stereotype in the tech field. For example, gone are those days when any technical role was immediately you would relate it to a man and you would not relate it to a woman, but things are changing. If you ask me whether we've changed enough, no ways. There's a long way to go. But if I compare, I had a working grandmother, I had a working mom, and if you compare to what lives they led, I think our representation is improving now. But just to give you a very interesting, some interesting numbers, right? Gartner says that even till today, as women, there's just 15.9% of representation of women in technology. And of course, I'm talking about engineering, but if you look at technology holistically, it's just 29%. And that just means that we have a long way to go.
Thanks. Nellie, what are your thoughts on this?
I think many times it could be taken too far as well. And I think it's important that we think of the fact that men are also victims to the same society as we live in, right? Like, it's not men's fault that we are where we are today, and especially not individual men's fault. And I feel like many times there are women that take this too far and say, like, it's the men's fault and men are doing this and da. But if we think of how are we raising our sons, how are we bringing up men, right? It's a lot about them being tough and strong. It's a lot of expectations on them. Like, it's our whole society. So it's not men's fault. And I feel like many times some women tend to take it too far and like blame the men almost. And when they try to bring equality, they do the same things as men have supposedly been doing for 100 years. They exclude the men. And I think that's the completely wrong way to go, to exclude men and say, oh, this is for women only, and we have a women this and women that and women clubs. And like, stop all of that crap. Like, you're saying that men have done that. Now you do exactly the same thing yourself. And that just causes more division, right? So I think when it goes too far, I do actually see many women making it about the fall of men. And that, I think, is completely the wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Sagar, what are your thoughts on what Nellie just said?
I think I absolutely agree with what Nellie said. And I think, we live in a world where there are so many opportunities. So as Benjamin said, it's not a zero-sum game. We live in a world where talent crunch is so prevalent that, as Shirley was quoting Gartner report, let me also quote a contrary report, which says we need another 70 million skilled talent in next 5 to 10 years. If we need so much talent, why does it need to be at the expense of others? We have opportunities for everyone. And today we live in a world where, there are no boundaries. If I look at my own business, we started selling to global audience from day one. And if you really want to cater to global audience, whether it's, North America or Europe or Asia, you need an extremely diverse workforce so that from day one, your product or your business is created in a manner which can cater to different stakeholders. So absolutely disagree that it threatens anybody and it's not a zero-sum game.
Then you raised a really interesting point, about your own business and how from, you're catering to a global workforce. So do you think that technology and all these trends in the future of work are finally sort of enablers to forge more gender parity to help women with their careers?
Absolutely, Tulika. I think that's one of the motives for us to start Multiplier. I grew up in India, and I grew up to a mother who stopped working after I was born. And by any measurement of education, she's much more educated than me. So now I think, if you talk about how technology has shaped it, now if we can work with the proliferation of remote work and remote working tools and so on and so forth, now you can work, you can be situated in India at your home and you can be working for a job in the US.
Yeah.
So technology, remote work, all of that has really enabled for the gender that has always taken a backseat in developing economies, which happens to be female gender, to come and be part of the workforce. And not just that, even if they dedicate, let's say, 50 or 60% of their time working from home, they can still make 70 to 80% of their salary as if they were in office. So technology has played a key role, and I think we've always been excited to bring that gender back into workforce. And without that, I don't see how the developing countries' GDP will ever match developed countries.
So interesting, you talked about remote work being an enabler for diversity. Shirley, you guys, allow founders who don't have a technical background to sort of build, the apps that they've thought about and so on. And, I think parity goes way beyond even the world of work. It starts with education, right? How do you think your technology sort of enables women to advance their careers?
See, I have just to add another perspective to this, right? Technology, let's look at just two years ago, right? COVID has been one of the greatest enablers to how we use technology in our day-to-day lives. Being a mother, let me quote this, it was so different and to see my daughter just having her class right next to me and she learning from me during my Zoom calls, right? So it was a very nice coexistence. And all of this happened because of the way technology was used. Let me also give a little bit of a diversity angle to this. Today, when you see women, when we want to join an organization, look at the way technology can be used. You can literally figure out everything that you want to about that organization. Earlier, it was just a brand, right? It's the Fortune hundreds. It was just the brand creating that pull. But right now, it's because of technology, we can hire the best of talent. Even talent can have visibility to the culture of an organization. So I think it gives that beautiful balance, working from home, understanding what you're getting into, and call that it enables you to take yourself to the next level. Yes.
Nellie, what about you? What are your thoughts around how technology? Anything that you want to add apart from this remote work and global careers?
So like on the topic of remote work, I think that has helped women massively. And I'm sick and tired of all of this, like put women in leadership positions and female leadership development programs. Like women have zero issues being leaders. Women are the best leaders. They're amazing at leading teams, they're amazing at leading companies. They don't need more help there. Where they need help is, can we get men into fatherhood positions? Where I see women struggling is because the men are not picking up the slack on the children's side. Can they pick up from soccer practice? Can they take the nights when the kid is waking up? Can they support more there? That's what would help women more. So from a remote working perspective, I think that has helped women massively in just being able to coordinate and manage their home life, their children, all of these things. But that's where, to earlier point on like men, like that's where they need to step up. Like we don't need, like women are great leaders. Like we don't need more put women in leadership development programs and leadership positions. They can do that. That's not an issue. But can we get men to pick up more of the slack and become fathers? That's where I think a better investment would be. And that's where I think remote work has impacted that positively in many ways.
Super interesting. So we'll take it to a man, Benjamin. What are your thoughts around picking up this slack? What are you doing to do your part?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that I do already, but like the nights and so on, I know about this, so that's good. But I do believe indeed that the technology has really added a lot more flexibility and showed and proven that flexibility was possible and that a different construct was possible. I would echo what Nellie was saying earlier about the society at large. I think it would be a utopia to believe that everything can change like this. And also, I believe that whether we like it or not, there is an imbalance, obviously, of the responsibilities at home versus for the woman versus men and so on. Flexibility has shown that actually it could be different. It could be, you don't have to go to work all the time. But if, as a man, you start to spend a lot more time at home rather than having to go to work, by nature, I feel that everybody, hopefully, will understand what it is to be at home every day, and will understand that they can also be at home when needs be, and so on and so on. So I really do believe that there was a huge progress, of course, enabled through technology, but maybe accelerated by COVID, where if everyone is at home, why wouldn't it be the man doing some more of the stuff and so on? So I do think it shed light on a potentially new arrangement, a new organization. So in that respect, I really think that technology has a huge role to play for this.
So do you feel, Benjamin, just as a follow-on on that, that at large, there is less of a tolerance from a man saying, look, I need some time off, or I need to be a bit flexible today because I have to attend my child's, I don't know, PTA, as compared to a woman saying the same thing? Do you see that around you?
I feel that it has at least allowed everyone to do more of it. So both men and women, you know, we all have those images in mind of someone doing an interview with I don't know which TV channel, and then you have the kids like crawling up, crashing the call, and so on and so on. And it happened to both men and women, and I do think it leveled clearly the field much more than this. Whereas before it was, oh, anyway, we'll ask the woman to make arrangements so that she can take care of whatever situation at home. I feel there is much more balance today in this.
Pauline, what are your thoughts on this? How do you?
Yeah. So I think I know the video you're talking about, and I would still say, unfortunately, if this happens to a man, it goes live and viral and everything. One thinks it's so cute that you're interrupted by your kids at work. And if that happens to a woman, it's basically it's a day-to-day thing that happens, right? And no one, it's nothing that's going to go viral. So I think there's still this difference. I do believe that technology flexibility has enabled men to also see that they are giving them maybe also a little bit space to discover that they actually really enjoy taking care of their kids too. And I think that's more something that I think, as Nellie rightly said, right, that's kind of what we need. We need men to see that they are capable in terms of skills, but also in terms of their setup to pick up more tasks at home, and that they actually enjoy it as much as the mothers do, right? We have this assumption that only women enjoy taking care of their kids or spending more time with them, and I'm pretty sure that's obviously not accurate. I know that to be a fact. And I think technology has really helped with that, especially the last couple of years with COVID.
So let's look at the sort of, hiring people, paying them and developing them. I mean, what are some of the things that you guys adopt to, improve the diversity in your hiring? Because to your point, Benjamin, when you were talking about, how things have improved, and Pauline, to your point, when you said that, man being disturbed by a child goes viral, and a woman, it's a daily thing, there is still some bias there, right? Some unconscious bias, because in our mind we have some perfect model of what an ideal hire for certain roles looks like. So what can we do better to hire more diversely and overcome this? Nellie, if you could go first, because I'm sure it'll be explosive to start.
Don't hire men. Crap it. Don't hire them at all. So the way that I actually got this question from someone who asked me, he had about like 300, 400 employees. And he was asking me, like, how do we get more women into our workforce? And we're really struggling with this and so on. And I have 65% women in Tigerhall. And that's across engineering, product. We're 65% women across all teams. And I asked him, how many women were you in the early stages? How many women were you when you were 20 people, when you were 40 people, when you were 60 people? And his answer was 0. So they had been this like pretty much all men founding team, all men early employees, maybe 1 or 2 women here and there. And I think one thing that I've noticed being a female founder is that women tend to look at organizations and seeing how many other women are there, right? So if you don't start with having women in your organization early, it will be very hard to get them later. So, and I've noticed that with our engineering team, right? I asked them, like, why did you join Tigerhall? They're like, oh, I thought it was so cool that we have a female CEO, that we have a female founder, and that we have like female leaders and so on. And I don't think it doesn't have to be the founding team necessarily, but having senior women that are in your company and enjoy working there and have grown with you, I think that's incredibly important. So getting women early on, if you're a startup, and if you're like setting up somewhere, like just getting them on early, I think that's really key, because there are very few women, sadly, that will join a company which is all men or like that is seen as being very male dominated. So I think that's key. Another thing, going back a little bit to the having fathers picking up the slack, like I think we as employers have huge responsibility when it comes to paternity leave policies. So we have joined something called the Pledge, which is about doubling paternity leave. So we've doubled paternity leave in all 12 markets where we have employees, and everyone gets twice what they would have gotten otherwise. And they can spread it out over the first 6 months of the baby's being born, but they have to take their paternity leave. So how do we enforce paternity leave, I think, is a huge thing. And that doesn't help our women in Tigerhall, right? But it helps their women who work in other companies. So if everyone can start doing that, that would have a massive butterfly effect and just helping men get more paternity leave. So I think those are two like very practical things that people can do to get more women in your own company, but also across industries and other companies.
Sagar, I don't know if you thought I'm going to go to you, but you're an all-male founding team. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you're sort of working on improving that diversity in your hiring, coming from exactly the opposite side.
Right. I think rightly so. I think, today we are, the three founders that we are obviously all are males, but today we are roughly 400 people in 45 countries and 60 nationalities. So things that have really worked for us in terms of getting diversity is, we've never restricted ourselves in terms of geography that we are recruiting from. And once you get that bias off the way and you really start to look for the best person for the job and not the best person in that geography for the job, you'd automatically attract more diversity. And it could be, any kind of diversity, right? The second thing that we've done is, as Nellie was pointing out, we have created, and I don't know if Nellie would agree with that, we have created female role model bosses in different departments. So let's say our head of payroll is an Indian woman, our head of customer success is a Polish Irish woman, our head of sales enablement is a Romanian American woman. So people in our organization, see up to the females in our organization really aspire and try to follow them. So that really sets a path for them to grow into a leadership team. The another very interesting thing about our business is we are fully remote, right? And that really helps people. And it's not just we are fully remote, we are fully flexible as well. As in, if you have to go and pick up your son or daughter at 3 p.m. from school, we are very open to that. We are very open to the way you want to work, the hours that you want to work, and so on and so forth. So that has really helped us attract an extremely diverse workforce.
Thank you. And Shirley, what are your thoughts? I mean, you're growing your team. How do you kind of ensure diverse hiring practices in your hiring?
Two things, right? The first thing is I've always stood up for hiring diverse candidate. But is there a challenge? Yes, there is, because there's a challenge in the pipeline itself of women, right? That's always a huge challenge. So getting women excited to the role, there are a few things that women also need to do. And I agree with Nellie. Yes, we are there, right? But are we standing up enough for ourselves and for our fellow women? There's still a long way to go. Are we speaking up and are we showing up? These are the three things that as women, we got to inculcate in women employees. So some of the things that we did was tweaking the process itself. Say, for example, there's a role available today. We'd make sure that out of the top 5 candidates, we have at least 2 women representations in that. Else, our talent acquisition team would just not go ahead with that role. We'd make sure that there is representation from women. That's a simple thing, but it always gave that opportunity. And next is to get women to apply for those roles, right? That sometimes is a challenge too, but rightly, I'd like what Sagar said. It's putting some women as leaders so that women as leaders, as a hiring manager, can always give that confidence to the team, to the people that they're hiring, that, hey, I'm here, I'm here for you, I'm doing it. This is the success that I've created, and I'm sure I'm going to make you successful too. So I think there's a lot in the works. But yes, sometimes we need to put those policies around. And another thing that we've done is we have put a diversity and inclusion persons, just looking into how much of diversity we have in the organization. So currently we are about 36% in terms of females, and out of this 56% of them are mothers, and that's a huge thing too, right? Giving women that flexibility to work and to let them know that they get things the way they want as well in the organization. So, and remote working, to your point, really helps in all of this. Yeah.
Awesome. Pauline, what about you? What are some of the things you do?
Yeah, I mean, so we look at it as in a three-step process, basically. Number one is awareness. So we really try to create awareness through, for example, our platform, where we indicate for people who are using our platform, like us, our company, obviously, where we clearly indicate how many male and female roles are open or filled. So that you already start with, since we're also fully remote, create a little bit more awareness within the company where you are at the given moment, right? Are we equal parity or not? The next one is really analysis on how we can promote more women to join the company. There are obviously a lot of different things. I mean, Nellie has spoken a lot about the support, the outside support with children. That's obviously crucial, a little bit hard to implement for like a small startup as ourselves. So what we, for example, focus a little bit more on is what Sagar was mentioning, that we are fully remote, and also in terms of working hours, fully flexible. So also for myself, I have 2 small kids. If I want to put them to bed, I can make time for that, and that's really respected. So we really try to analyze what are the vehicles we can use, and in terms of actions, I was just mentioning, right, that we really try through flexible time to allow everyone to take care of their family, but still show up at work. And also me personally, I really try to, as a co-founder, co-CEO, be a motivator for all the women who are thinking about joining us. But I also have to agree with everyone else here before, right? There is also a little bit of a pipeline problem. And it has to go a little bit like both ways. We really also need more women open to apply for these jobs in startups and tech particularly.
Yeah, awesome. And Benjamin?
Yeah, I mean, I would really like agree with what has been shared so far on this. Right? I think the flexibility that we have shown from day one was really an enabler again for this to really foster again more freedom in terms of organizing a day and so on. And I think what Pauline just mentioned is we lead by example. I mean, I bring my kid to school in the morning. One of them to school in the morning, one of them to bed in the evening, because they are at the same time. So we kind of share this as well. But this is almost a non-negotiable. By doing that myself, I hope, even though it's not the primary purpose, but I hope that it brings confidence to everyone that they can also do this. The second thing I would echo, Sagar, that when you are maybe not full remote, you can be full remote, but even hybrid in terms of being having some remote workers and so on, it really allows you to really get rid of any other bias than skills. You know, if you start not caring about location, about nationality, about plenty of things, progressively, many biases, including gender biases, will naturally like fade, or can at least fade. And finally, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that we have, I know I don't have the numbers, but we have a lot more success in many positions for female candidates than male candidates. Not because of some, whatever conscious positive thing that Nellie would not necessarily be happy with, but just because they were the best for the job. And in some jobs, it's true that we don't have candidates, like zero. So female candidates, I mean. So of course, there is a lot to do, and I'm sure we have a role to play, and we can have an impact on the pipeline itself. And maybe that's also the new construct, is like, okay, we have the female, they can lead. It's not a question. It's not about putting them in more programs and so on, but how do we make sure that that they apply, that they feel comfortable applying, that we see them, and so on and so on.
So, just my 2 bits, but one of the things I find in hiring, if someone could just stop worrying about whether someone is male or female and just hire the best person for the job, I mean, frankly speaking, and when I say hire the best person for the job, measure them with a little bit more objectivity, measure them based on the competencies you need, the skills you need, the knowledge you need, rather than, all these other things. Because, Shirley, coming back to the, having a few people in your shortlist, I understand why that's so important at one point, because if you don't have inclusion, how are you going to foster inclusion, right? But at the same time, when we do that, you're literally saying there's a fall of men. There could be 2 more qualified candidates who may not be, who may not be women, who kind of get thrown off because we're trying to create this inclusion. So, Sagar, you're smiling, so I'll ask you, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm very, very interested to know what Nellie's thoughts on this, where, if we were to just objectively hire people and not look at any bias, Nellie, what do you think? Will we end up hiring more men or more women?
So I think for me, a big part of my philosophy on this topic is not to label. So I did a LinkedIn post last year on International Women's Day that was titled, "I am not my vagina." And I think that is very important. It was like, I'm not a female founder, I'm a founder. I'm not a woman in tech, I'm a person in tech. I'm not a female business leader, I'm a business leader. So I think this whole labeling needs to go both on the women's own side, or whatever minority side, and on the employer side. So for example, when I see things like women mentorship programs, or women in leadership, or women accelerators, I'm like, the best thing you can do is just remove women and say, this is the accelerator for the best talent in the company. This is a leadership development program. And it just so happens that whatever, like 80% is women or 40% is women, or whatever you want to make it. And the same with top female entrepreneurs. Just call it top entrepreneurs and put women on there. That's the best thing you can do. Or like put like a women in tech stage. No, just put like a normal panel of people and put a mix with like female on there as well. So I think labeling is the worst thing we can do. And that also goes for the women themselves. I get tons of questions from women who are like, what is the most difficult thing about being a female founder? What is the hardest thing about being a woman leader? I'm like, I have the same challenges that Sagar has, as Benjamin has. Like, we're struggling with the same things. Like, I've only been treated differently twice in my life because of my gender. And both of those times it has been by other women. So I've never had a man treating me differently because of my gender. So I think this labeling has to go from both ways. Like, we can't put up things and say like, this is for women or female entrepreneurs or women on stage and this and that. Like, just call it whatever it is and include women. That's the best form of inclusion. And the same goes for women themselves. Like, don't identify yourself as, I am a woman entrepreneur. No, you're an entrepreneur. That's it. It's enough. You don't have to be a female founder and this and that. So I think the whole labeling concept, I'm philosophically massively against.
I echo you, Nellie. I absolutely agree. I mean, even from a hiring perspective, I think if we can just go out and, foster a process where we set out competencies, maybe ask the same questions. There are many, many little pieces which you can sort of adopt so that you don't have a bias when asking, nicer or positively reinforcing questions to men, or slightly harder questions to women. But if we could just have a more structured, a more data driven, a more objective approach, the challenge is how do you sort of make that throughout your organization? That's the really complicated bit, which brings me to something you all do have control on, and is obviously a hot topic, and there's no easy answer here. Benjamin, how do you think one can foster better pay parity in an organization?
I think it's pretty much exactly the same in the way as what we discussed in the previous topic. Is like, if you start by not making a difference, to proactively at least have some pay for a specific position and not for a specific candidate for that position, that will already make sure you have a structure in place. And maybe as it will be probably maybe more useful to see what companies can do, because we did it, is that we tend often, companies at large, not necessarily only us, but to hire and to look at what candidates were making before. If this happens, obviously those who were making less for whatever reason, but it might be the result of some bias against them and so on, will never be able to kind of progress and match with the others and so on. So at the very beginning of the company, we were hiring for positions, and we had a few people we hired who had fairly different pay. Not significant, but still significant, and still there was a difference which was not actually justified in terms of the skills and contribution and so on. And I remember that it was the case for one of our female new joiners, and that actually just a couple of months after joining the company, when we actually realized that, by proactively looking at the numbers and so on, to her surprise, we said, hey, you will have a 20% increment. Less than 3 months after joining the company. And at first, she was surprised and so on. But the fact is that, maybe it was actually, I don't remember, but it should almost have been backdated if you want. It's not a matter of we give you a 20% increment. It's like, sorry, we actually made a mistake. And we are just, paying you the same as that person or that person or that person having the same contribution to the company than you do. And we don't pay you more than them, but we definitely cannot pay you less than them. So it's really about being conscious of it, in my opinion, and being, in a way, brave enough to correct. Because you could say, I'm a startup founder, I don't have that much money and so on in bank and so on. Yet, I will definitely not let that happen to save some money on your back, basically.
Pauline, what do you think?
Yeah. I think totally agree with Benjamin. I think not only in regards to male, female, but generally speaking, setting up a good structure I'm always a fan of good structure from day one, is really, is the only thing you can do to prevent this from happening, and also controls, the roles you put out there, the growth opportunities you put out there within your company. You make it very fair if you set up the structure first, and then it really doesn't matter anymore whether it's a male or female candidate or employee that goes through the process and has the opportunity to grow and rise within the company. But I would also admit that setting that up in practice is fun and quite easy if that's something you like doing, but really enforcing it is obviously much harder. I have to say, though, I think the hardest salary negotiation I ever had was with a female colleague. So they can definitely negotiate too.
It's interesting, there are lots of studies who say that women are very strong at negotiating on behalf of someone else, but tend to negotiate less on their own behalf. So it's great that you came across an exception on that. But Shirley, what are your thoughts on pay parity?
This is to what Pauline and Benjamin said, right? Benjamin, it's great that you found out in that 3 months that the woman, female candidate asked for 20% less. But the root cause of the problem here is that she didn't ask for what she deserves, right? And this is where negotiation comes in play. And I would say, and I'm great, Pauline, you met with this, and I echo the sentiments of Tulika. Women are really bad at negotiation. Of all the women that I've hired in my career throughout, the question that comes to, and you ask them, hey, what do you think? What's the pay? What do you expect? And there's a question that we ask, right? And women say, you look into my numbers, this is what I've been getting. They know that they can ask for more. And that's why I always say it's very, very important for women to speak up and to ask till you get it. And Pauline, you ended up giving that woman what she wanted, and you felt
I had to.
right? Exactly. So I would say, the root of the problem is not being able to pay them, but for women to stand up and ask for themselves what they deserve. And another thing is such a renowned sport like Wimbledon had to put in pay parity. And this is the third year in a row that they are able to give equal pay to women and male players. Imagine that, right? So we're just a small part of what it is. It's very important to negotiate and ask well and train women to, and maybe Nellie will not agree to that, but Nellie, I think it's important to coach women that they should ask for more till they get it.
So there you go, Nellie. What are your thoughts then?
I think everyone should be paid equally. I mean, fair and square, like for the same role, same experience, like theoretically, everyone should be paid equally. Then, of course, that will not really happen in reality because people come in with different experiences and they have like different paths and so on. So, but within a range, and like we practice the same like salary bands and at different levels and people move up a band and so on. So salary parity, all for it. I think I like what Benjamin mentioned about being brave enough to make the correction. I think many people can be like, oh, I can save a bit of money here because they didn't ask for what they should be paid, and then it's very important to make that correction right the moment you notice it. And I think also it's important to not just give in to the loudest mouth, because there are certain people that are always very loud and they will always want more and ask for more, negotiate and so on. And sometimes I see people giving in to those at the expense of the more quiet, hardworking people that might more deserve it. So what I recommend is to plan out at the start of the year, what are the salary increments that you're planning for over the course of the year, and not make it spontaneous. So for example, we never give salary increments outside of an annual pay review cycle, because that's just gonna make the people who are like, oh, they happen to have one good event or they had a big achievement or a big success, and then they use that straight away to like ask for more money. So not giving in to the loudest mouth, I think, is very important. And one thing that I've learned as a founder is also, I think many people don't think about, is that remember that people are never ever grateful for being overpaid. They will never be grateful for being overpaid. They will always just want more and more and more. So overpaying someone, even if you feel like, oh my God, I'm so nice to you, I'm actually overpaying you, you should be grateful, they will just adjust to that new comp, right? So they're never going to think about that. So don't overpay someone at the expense of them not having someone that is actually underpaid. So, but these bands, I highly recommend the band exercise and seeing what are your outliers, and you will see pretty clearly if there's an outlier, and then to Benjamin's point, be brave enough to make that correction.
Yeah. Sagar, I mean, you have a global workforce. How do you sort of ensure that pay parity?
So it's a very, very interesting question in our organization. We purely take a meritocratic approach. I think two aspects of two sides of this question. One is like as a business owner, as a founder, and so on and so forth, we come from a generation where we've never taken a lens whether the person that I'm negotiating or hiring is a man or a woman or whatever, right? So our goal is to always get the best person and pay them what the fair market rate is, right? And not be overly generous because you're a woman or be overly generous because you're a man. At the end of the day, as a CEO, we have to run a P&L. We also have budgets. So we take an extremely neutral lens and we pay them what the market rate is, so that they also feel satisfied and they also stay with us for a longer duration, right? On the other hand, right, for example, what Shirley said and what Benjamin said, we've figured this out for a fact that when you write a job description and you become overly specific in it, very few women apply if they realize that they don't meet even one criteria. And so we always do this analysis, how many percent of applicants are female and male. And generally, and this is a data-driven observation, men tend to apply even if they meet one of the criteria. Females tend to not apply even if they don't meet one criteria out of all the listed criteria. So that's one. So we have taken measures to make sure we keep it slightly generic, because if you have 10 years of experience and 12 years of experience, in my view, it doesn't really make a difference, right? That's one. Second, to Shirley's point of view, or I think Nellie raised it, that females in general, we've realized that, and actually, in my case, I've realized that different geography have different, way of negotiating. For example, especially if you're in US, you cannot ask their old salary, and you don't have any way to figure out what they're making, and found them generally more vocal, rightly so, about asking what they deserve. It's on that lens, everybody should absolutely ask for what they deserve, irrespective of what their gender is. If they think they deserve, they are making $50,000, but they deserve $100,000, they should absolutely ask for it. But as a business owner, I have to make sure I pay the person fair market price, because I have to take care of the P&L at the end of the day. So I think both sides to the story.
I think there's some interesting points here around salary banding at different levels. Some interesting points around how you negotiate salary for a new starter. But I think to your point, Nellie, if you have salary bands, you can probably, Benjamin, what you did, adjust those people, maybe when you hired or maybe 2-3 months later. And then Sagar, your point resonates a lot with me, because I do believe having very transparent and meritocratic, promotion paths are a great way to then ensure that there is diversity in your career pathing, and that there's parity once those people start advancing in their jobs as well. So some interesting points to take away there. So I have a couple of questions. We have like sort of 8-9 minutes left, and I think you've had a lot of warm up and nice time. So I want you guys to just give me the first word that comes into your mind when I say the word feminist. Benjamin, first word.
First 3 words. It's everyone's role and everyone's cause.
Nellie, feminist.
Equality.
Shirley, feminist.
Equal rights, yeah.
Sagar?
A tool to bring women to forefront who have been at the back seat for some time.
Pauline, feminism?
Success.
Awesome. So we've got very, very positive points, because a lot of time in the media, feminism is aggressive, claws out, and unfortunately, that also leads to exclusion. I think, Nellie, just before this call, we were talking about how, many times we're almost sort of, it's almost projected the other way, right? When we look at what feminism can mean in the larger media.
Like people would sometimes view it as very like aggressive and just like, to the point of the fall of men. But the true definition of feminism is the belief in equal rights and opportunities for both genders. So that is what feminism means. So most people are actually feminists, but they just don't want to call themselves feminists because it sounds like something they think is too aggressive, but that's not true.
Almost negative in that connotation. So then my last question before I ask questions from the audience is, what does gender parity truly mean to you? And how do you sort of instill that in your organization or in the world around you? Sagar, let's start from you.
Right. I think very similar point of view, Tulika. Again, absolutely neutral lens of looking at people. When we are hiring for a certain role, we would never look at whether a woman would do good in this role, or a man would be better, or a certain gender would do better. We'd always go for the best person in the best geography wherever they are located. So extremely neutral lens, and no bias towards a specific gender.
Pauline, what about you? What does gender parity mean to you?
I think, I wouldn't want to put a number on it. I think as a step one, I think an issue is that we are also unconsciously biased, right? So it's very easy to say, okay, we want to hire and we're not biased and everyone gets fair pay and what they deserve. But in the end, we're all biased. Also, as a woman, I might use, maybe the weak negotiation of power of someone else to my benefit as a business owner, right? Am I doing that consciously? Hopefully not. Am I doing that maybe sometimes subconsciously? Maybe, I'm not 100% sure. So I think being really much more aware and open about this unconscious bias, I think is one thing that I'm trying to work on personally, to make improvements within hybrid in the future. And then obviously everything else follows, right? The hiring, the promotion, the salary, etc. But that's where, I guess, where you have to start, and where where you have to be also super honest with yourself. Are we actually all so unbiased as we think?
Awesome. Benjamin, what is gender parity to you?
To me, I would summarize it as same opportunities for the same input, same reward for the same output. So this is kind of a summary that can, I think, be translated into very practical and actionable things, which are the things that Pauline just mentioned and that we all discussed about for the past few minutes.
Awesome. Shirley, what about you?
Just means equality in everything that you do, right? The equal opportunity in everything that you do, right from being having a role at home to your workplace, to a community, a society, education, everything. That's gender parity to me.
Awesome. Nellie?
Gender parity to me means living in a world where your gender is not stopping you from doing what you want to do, regardless of what that is, and nobody else stopping you, but you're not stopping yourself either.
Awesome. Well, we have lots of questions, and I know we have only 3 or 4 minutes. So maybe I'll throw these questions out, different questions to different people, if that's okay. So Nellie, I'll start with you. You know, the world's been talking a lot about this topic, this person says, and you know, it's been years now that we've been talking about this every Women's Day. What do you think is stalling this process?
If I was going to make one bet, I would say support for fathers from the workplace. Paternity leave, making sure fathers are fathers, make sure they pick up from soccer practice, make sure they take the nights, make sure it's actually parity with children. Because once women become mothers, 43% of them drop out of the workforce. 43%. And some of them come back some years later, some of them never come back. So I think that is where we need to put the biggest focus, is how can we ensure that women, once they have children, actually get the appropriate support at home to be able to do what they want to do at work.
Awesome. Thank you. Shirley, what advice would you give the next generation of female leaders?
I think it's very important to kind of look into some of the basic things of yourself, right? Just make sure that you get a good mentor. You know, that's very important for you to get a perspective of things. 3 things again, right? Make sure you show up, make sure you stand up for what you believe, and make sure you speak up for, again, what you want and what change you want in this world. Yeah.
Awesome. Pauline, what about you? What advice would you give female leaders, aspiring female leaders?
I would say it's a little bit, I mean, Nellie was mentioning that already, the support of men, but I think for women, unfortunately, the situation is still what it is at the moment, right? So it's a little bit painful, but I think going through it, staying in the workforce will pay off in the long run, and really openly asking for help. I think that's my advice, you know, being really open with the struggles that you have and the support you need to, Shirley said, really have the career that you want to have.
So Sagar, I have a question for you, and Ben, actually. Is talking about gender parity or talking about women and Women's Day or women's rights is sometimes taken as a negative thing by naysayers, saying, you know, why are we sort of, you know, doing this for women, etc. How would you address that? Sagar,
Should I go first? Yeah. So I think, again, you know, for example, as we are talking about feminism, right? And as I said, it's a tool for correcting the wrong, right? We have seen years of females taking a back seat, right? I was giving an example of my mother. So, until we reach a point where all that, suppression is, out of the picture and so on and so forth, these tools are very, very important. I come from a country where, and not many people would know that, we have a system of reservation. And, it was institutionalized to make sure whatever wrong has been done, can be corrected. And people who have not gotten opportunities because of a certain gender or a certain caste or whatever, now can come back and get those opportunities and be part of the mainstream. So these initiatives, these movements are very, very important. And, it's not that, hey, we support women more, or, this gender is better and so on and so forth. No, it's just a tool for correcting what has been wrong.
Benjamin, what about you?
For me, if I look back when I started my career and so on, I actually have the feeling that it's more and more seen positively, or even maybe neutrally, but as a necessary thing to do and to talk about and so on. So I was actually a couple of months back participating at an event where actually some women in the audience shared that they had almost never met any men in the companies they had worked at who were negative about gender parity. And some went a bit further, sharing that at times, some of the naysayers were other women. So both of them are not generalizations, but it shows that, there is sometimes some misconceptions, and sometimes the naysayers may also make more noise. So you might see them more. It's like the negative correlation with the word feminism is just because the media, like the national TV, will probably not, stream this webinar. We are like nice people, but when there is an action which is a bit more, explosive in a way and so on, that's what you will see in the media. But that's why that's what many people who are not necessarily thinking of it as deeply as we try to and so on will see, and that's the image they will have of feminism and talking about gender parity and so on. But in fact, I've not ignoring at all the fact that we are not there yet. I feel that the naysayers are less and less.
Thank you so much for that, Benjamin. And that's a really nice and hopeful note to end this session on. Firstly, I just want to thank all of our panelists today. Thank you for taking out time from, I know, what are extremely hectic schedules to talk about women, how we forge that parity. And, there's some really interesting ideas around meritocracy, equal opportunities, removing unconscious bias in your organizations. And I'm sure with founders like yourself building incredible businesses, we're going to see much more of that hopeful stuff in many, many organizations to come. So thank you, everyone. Happy Women's Day and have a fantastic year ahead.
Happy Women's Day, and thank you for having us, Tulika.